and welcome to the GJ Sports Vlog, where in this episode, and hopefully for a few episodes over the next couple of weeks and months, we will be covering the GAA and the Gaelic Games, the championship in both football and hurling. I myself, I've followed the games, sort of over my life, and obviously Irish and a big fan of the sports, but I would say probably to use sort of a term from sort of boxing followers that people would call a casual follower. So I thought we would get someone who's even able to show a bit of expertise. So I've been able to draft in a young man here who's shown this summer how interested he is in the games, and hopefully we'll get into that at some point. But I would like to introduce you all to Conor McKenna.
Hello, Gerry. How's things?
Yeah, all good, Conor. Yes. So you want to tell the people a wee bit about yourself quickly there, just sort of to introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm a sports journalist there based in the Midlands. That's been my primary profession for a few years. But yeah, with the GAA, certainly would be a big interest of mine. And hopefully, I wouldn't say expertise, Gerry, but hopefully I can try and inform the viewers a bit over the next few weeks about the All-Ireland Championship. I think that the All-Ireland Championship is going to provide respite to some people. I think people are going to be very depressed through these times, find the days very long, and hopefully that the GAA and as all live sport has done can provide them with a bit of relief now for the next couple of weeks. So we're going to try and give the listeners as much information as we can here.
Good days. Just as I mentioned there, you took sort of a bit of an extra step. Obviously with things the way they are with COVID, if you want to tell the listeners what you've done to get your fix of GAA during the summer.
Yeah, well, I took a few trips up north and gave the car a bit of a battering over the summer. I went, I'd say, thousands and thousands of kilometres to go to games and stayed overnight a few times as well. So I really made the most of not having any holiday this summer. Well, I actually would say I had better holidays because I was up in one weekend. I was looking through the day and I saw the My Ticket app there was selling tickets on general sale for down in Armagh, and I was saying how I'd love to go. So I kind of bought tickets for games across those three counties and stayed overnight, and then I really enjoyed it. Like, it was very, very, very interesting and very enjoyable. So I went over to Derry then 2 weeks later for the first round of the knockout games of the Derry Senior Championship, and then I was back up 2 weeks later then for the quarterfinals of the Derry Championship. So I had taken in 9 knockout games over 2 weekends in Derry and also games down in Armagh as well. So that was really, really, really enjoyable, and I think it was really it had provided me with a bit of a respite during the COVID, but that's kind of taken away now. But look, sure, it is what it is, and we'll look forward to the Intercounty Championships.
Okay, it's definitely quite a show of commitment. So anyway, the idea behind this then is going to be we're going to split it into the hurling and the football. So in this episode, the opening episode, we're going to talk about, because the Senior Hurling Championship starts this week, we're going to cover it first of all. So obviously the format in the Liam McCarthy Cup is that there's 10 teams in it and split into the two provinces, Leinster and Munster, and 5 teams in each. So there's a quarter final and both Leinster and Munster this weekend. So we'll start with them, and we'll start on Saturday. We've got Dublin and Laois. What do you think of that game? Do you think Laois can cause another upset like they did to the Dubs last year?
Yeah, Laois last year, it was a massive upset. They bet Dublin in the All-Ireland preliminary quarter-finals. I think it was 122 to 23 points. They had beaten Westmeath in the Joe McDonagh final. I think it was the week before. They scored 326 that day. They won 3 of their 4 Joe McDonagh Cup games. They drew the last round against Westmeath. It was a dead rubber. It was a dress rehearsal for the Joe McDonagh final. They're up against Dublin this weekend. Dublin then, on the other hand, last year, it looked to be a brilliant year for them. They had done well in the league. They bet Tipperary in Semple Stadium in the All-Ireland quarter-final. They ran Limerick very close. That should be the league quarter-final. They ran Tipperary. They bet Tipperary in even. They ran Limerick very close in the National League semi-final, and that was considered a moral victory as such, even though I don't like that term. They went into Leinster then. They lost to Kilkenny in the first round in Nolan Park, but they drew against Wexford. They bet Carlow then away, and then they knocked out Galway, who had been in 2 All-Ireland finals in a row previously. So Dublin looked like they were in a great position last year. It looked set to be, they were red-hot favourites to overcome Laois. they would have been playing Tipperary in Croke Park in the All-Ireland quarter-final, and the winners of that would have been playing Leinster champions Wexford. So Dublin last year looked to be in a very, very good position, but all of a sudden then Laois completely upset the apple cart and they knocked out the Dubs. So Laois will love to do something similar this weekend. I think the game's in Parnell Park on Saturday evening. So Dublin Laois, it promises to be a very, very good game. I think that Dublin weren't going great in the league beforehand. Laois weren't going fantastic either. But to be honest, Gerry, 7 months is no form guide, really. Like back in March or back in February when those leagues games were like as it is normally, the league is 10 weeks before the championship. Maybe it's finished in March and the championship doesn't really begin till the middle of May, maybe start of June. Like so, the league normally is no bearing. So this year it's even less bearing. But yeah, that should be a very, very good game of hurling. I probably expect Dublin to come out just about come out on top this year because I wouldn't say they took Laois for granted last year, but they certainly didn't perform on the day. So I'd say Dublin probably like to right the wrongs this Saturday evening. I think they just about will do enough to get over Laois.
And obviously the winner of that then goes into the semi-final where Kilkenny await them. Do you think either of the two of them could cause any trouble for Kilkenny?
It's hard to know, Gerry. Kilkenny are such a serious team. They have such talent all across the pitch, and they have a manager who he really is a genius of the game. I suppose he's the Alex Ferguson of hurling maybe, but like Kilkenny this year, they seem to have. But Kilkenny, they're very, very good at keeping their cards close to their chest. We don't really hear if there's any injuries or anything, but they don't seem to be too injury affected at the moment, Kilkenny. But like Dublin last year in Nolan Park definitely would have fancied their chances in the first round with a round robin format. Now, look, Dublin or Laois, whoever does play Kilkenny, they won't probably have anything to lose. But no, I'd say Kilkenny would probably get to a Leinster final this year.
So moving on down into Munster then on Sunday, the opening game, the quarter final. It's actually quite a good one. Two sides that done well in the league, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this actually doubling up as the league final. Clare and Limerick on Sunday.
Yeah, it's doubling up. It's a unique Munster quarter final in the sense that it's doubling up as the National League final as well. Both of those teams in the league, when the league action was suspended, they finished top of their groups. I don't know what the story was there. I think that the leagues were initially meant to finish. Limerick did get their 5 matches played, but there was issues with postponements and that. So anyway, whatever, there was some agreement made that those teams would be. I think the leagues did get finished the group stage, but whatever happened, Gerry, the leagues did get finished in the group phase, but the knockout stages were never played. But anyway, Limerick and Clare were deemed to be, well, they were the two teams top of 1A and 1B at the time. So it was deemed that would be. That I think that was going to be a league final if they met in the Munster Championship now. And as the draw turned out, both of those teams were drawn out to play each other in the Munster quarter final. So it's going to double up as a league final, but I don't think that means anything really, in the sense that I think that no team is going to have motivation to win a league this weekend. They're going to be motivated to win the first round of the Munster Championship. Clare are managed by Brian Lohan. He was a real star of the team in the 90s when they won the All-Irelands in 95 and 97. And Lohan it's a very, very exciting appointment for the Banner County. Is Lohan. They were playing serious stuff in the league. I think they've had 4 wins and a draw or something like that for them in their group games, and things were really, really looking up for Clare. Like the COVID crisis came, the suspension. It was obviously the pandemic. It's a sad that and it's definitely that the games definitely should have been postponed. But like it came at a bad time for Clare because momentum was very, very much with them, and now they're after losing an awful lot of lads through injury. I think that John Conlon is out this weekend. He's a very, very good hurler up front. Colin Galvin is out. Podge Collins has left the panel as well. Peter Duggan is out. So Clare, they're really, really hit with injuries going into this weekend. I think Ian Galvin, Colin's brother, is out as well. Other games recently. So Clare are in a bit of trouble with injuries at the moment. Now Limerick are also in a bit of trouble with injuries too, in the sense that their full back line there, Mike Casey is a very, very good full back. He's out. I think he's out for the championship. Richie English has only recovered from a very, very serious cruciate injury. So Richie English might not be put straight back into the team. And Shane Dowling, it's very sad, had to retire because of injury. So they're 3 serious talents. Like Casey and English were the linchpins of what was a serious full back line over the past few seasons. And Dowling off the bench provided absolutely massive impact. So while Dowling wasn't a starter, his influence off the bench will definitely be missed. But I'd expect Limerick though to win this weekend. I think the injuries will just be too much for Clare, and I just think Limerick will have too much for them this weekend.
Okay. I know a lot of people are sort of looking at Limerick maybe as potential winners of the McCarthy Cup this year. But what else do you see in the Munster Championship? Do you think they can come through it, or do you think there's going to be serious rivalry there?
I think there'll be serious rivalry there, Gerry, to be honest. I think if you're looking at the Munster Championship, like Limerick and Clare, if it is Limerick this weekend, that'll set them up against Tipperary in Ireland semi-final, or the Munster semi-final even, and the other one is Cork and Waterford. So we're just touching that Cork-Waterford game briefly. It's not for another week or so, but like both those teams, if they win that game, like Cork have been bridesmaids in recent years in the All-Ireland, not in Munster. The record in Munster is very, very good, but like for a county with a serious tradition to have not won an All-Ireland in 2005 is very, very, very disappointed. And I don't think they've won a minor under 21 All-Ireland in years, or the new under 20. So Cork hurling has really, this is a real famine for Cork hurling. It is like 15 years, and I watched them back in 2005 against Galway, and I watched them in 2004 against Kenny, and they won both of those finals fairly well. And I wouldn't have thought that we wouldn't have seen another one since, but like Cork, Waterford, that's for next week, obviously. But the Limerick tip as well, like Liam Sheedy, his Hurling Championship hurling is absolutely fantastic. So I think in 2008 they won, like they won the Munster that year, and then the Waterford just took them completely against the odds in All Ireland semi final, 120 to 119. They bet them by a point, and then in 2009 they just about missed out on beating the greatest hurling team of all time, probably in Kilkenny. They lost by 4 or 5 points that day. And in 2010, then Sheedy stopped the 5 in a row, resigned, quit as Tipperary manager that year, came back last year in 2019, then won their 4 Munster Championship round robin games, had a no-show in the Munster final, and then came back to win the All-Ireland. So Liam Sheedy has a serious talent for peaking on big games. And like, will they win a Munster Championship? I don't know, but I think they'll be very, very close to winning on All-Ireland.
Just before we leave the Munster Championship, I just want to ask a wee question about Clare. Just sort of from, obviously, without the real level of expertise and just kind of taking obviously a passing interest in it. For me, I remember like whenever Clare won the All Ireland, whatever, I'm not sure exactly how many years ago that was now. But at that time they just seemed to have like a really young panel. Was there not something like 15 or 16 of them was in the same like under 21s or something? And like there seemed to be thinking that they were going to like probably go on and win a couple. So like what happened there with Clare?
Well, that's a very, very good question, Gerry. I think they've tried to answer it on many occasions, but if you look at that year 2013, it was just a mad year for hurling in the sense that like that Kilkenny and Tipperary were out very, very early that year. They were like, I think that Brian Cody was he in hospital or something over the summer, and Dublin stunned Kilkenny, and then Dublin, they won a Leinster Championship that year, did Dublin, and then the semi-finalists, then Dublin were in the semi-final, obviously. Cork had won a Munster that year, they were in the semi-final. No, I think Limerick actually, Limerick win the Munster that year, they were in the semi-final, and then it was, so Limerick and Dublin were the provincial champions, and Clare, they lost to Cork in a Munster in the round robin, and or in the Munster Championship, the old Munster Championship back then. They were in the quarterfinals and against Galway. They came through the qualifiers. Cork were in the quarterfinals against Kilkenny. Henry Shefflin was sent off. Cork bet Kilkenny that year, and then Cork came. They bet Dublin. Then Cork got to the final, and then Clare came against Galway. Bet them. They absolutely stunned the very for that Limerick team on the day, and then Clare and Cork in the final. Clare played brilliantly the first day. Then Cork got a few goals. It looked to be over. Doal, I don't know how you pronounce the name exactly, but got the corner back, got them the point there, and then the second day Clare scoring 5 goals, and a young Shane O'Donnell wrote his name in history, scoring a hat-trick, even though he wasn't starting the first day. And then Clare, though, like they won that All-Ireland, it was just it was a savage championship, but in terms of results, it was probably a freak championship. And Clare never really pushed on at all after that year. They just didn't really fulfill their potential at all, and they haven't really been close. In 2018, they were very, very close to getting to an Ireland final. They drew with Galway, then lost the replay by a point. So that year, Clare were very close, but they haven't won a Munster like in a long time either. Like so, but when they won the All Ireland, they had loads of under 21s coming through at the time, and like they didn't look like that it would be so long like that they wouldn't be contenders at all. They haven't won a Munster Championship since 1998. Like so, but they've won an All Ireland without winning a Munster, and for whatever reason, it hasn't really happened. And the under 20s and minors in Clare, they've gone back slightly in recent seasons as well. So look, it's not good at all. Maybe the team peaked too early. I don't know what it was, but they won a lot of them with serious. Like Tony Kelly was an absolute star that year. Shane O'Donnell, a lot of young players. It was not an old team. Look, yeah, you wouldn't have thought that it would have been another. In 7 years' time, we'd be saying, why did this team not do anything since?
Yeah, it's certainly just looking at the Munster Championship. Obviously, like you look at the five teams there, and like if any one of them were there on All Ireland Day, like it wouldn't be a massive surprise. So the depth's obviously there, but obviously we'll see how the Leinster and Munster Championships develop. But unlike the football this year, everybody's getting a second chance anyway with the qualifying rounds and quarterfinals and into the semi-finals. So we'll see how that develops anyway. But what we'll do now is we'll move on to one that maybe has a bit of a personal interest for ourselves in the Joe McDonagh Cup. So this year the five teams: Antrim, Carlow, Kerry, Meath, and Westmeath. Starts off on Sunday with Kerry versus Meath, and one that might interest us in Antrim versus Westmeath. So, who are you looking at as the team possibly to beat in that Joe McDonagh Cup?
It's hard to know, Jerry, who's the team to beat. Like, I'd say Antrim are coming on the basis that they're after winning a National League Division 2A, but I'd say Westmeath are probably just the team to beat, maybe on paper. And I mean on paper in the sense that they've lost two Joe McDonagh Cup finals in a row. Now, Carlow are the team that came down last year, so they've had a really, really bad run of late, though. Like, they've lost numerous games. I know the form counts for nothing, but they lost all their league playoff. They lost in the Walsh Cup their three games, and they lost all their Leinster Championship games last year, and they lost a few games at the tail end of the 2019 league. So they've not had a good run, Carlow, at all. Now, like Kerry are another team. They have Kerry have been very, very consistent in recent years, and Kerry are good enough to beat any team in their day. So look, I'm not trying to dodge the question here, but I'd say Westmeath probably just about the team to beat because they've lost two finals and they've avoided relegation in Division 1 this year, and they competed relatively well in Division 1. So I'd say Westmeath probably just about the team to beat this year.
Okay, and obviously then this week it's come out that in that game, that Antrim and Westmeath game, Antrim are going to be without at least one player that's failed a COVID test, and I'm not sure exactly what, how many players might have to sit that one out as well. So do you think that gives Westmeath much of an advantage?
Well, it definitely does, Jerry. If the players are missing, Westmeath will have an advantage. But I think there's doubts over a few players for Antrim's fitness, just aside from COVID. Like Liam McManus was forced off with an injury against Kerry very early, and like McManus is just a savage hurler. So the fact that Antrim managed to win the league final without their talisman is a very, very, very positive sign for them. Conor Johnston is injured. I believe he's not going to play, and I think Keelan Malloy there's an injury doubt about him as well. Now McManus and Malloy might feature, but like Antrim, I don't know anything about the COVID. It'd be unfair on the players to speculate. But if any time you lose a player, it's going to Westmeath. You're going to have an upper advantage. Now, if Westmeath can win this game in Corrigan Park, they'll feel that they have a great chance of getting to another Joe McDonagh final because they have two games at home and one more away after. So if they win this game, Westmeath will be in a very, very, very good position. Now, Killian Doyle is missing for Westmeath, and he's a fantastic hurler. He's one of the best hurlers in the competition. But Davy Glennon is the interesting one. Now, Glennon played for Galway in the Ireland final a few years ago, and like Davy Glennon is a very, very good hurler. Like he's the type of player on paper he'd probably be the best player in the competition. But there's question marks over his availability. Has his transfer gone through, or has it made a deadline? I wouldn't be a technical expert on those things, but if Glennon, if there's a chance he's available, he'll be a serious addition for Westmeath. I think Brendan Murtagh is back on the panel. Murtagh is one of the best ever hurlers, if not the best ever hurler to come out Westmeath. He's won 3 championships in a row at Clonkill. So it'll be a very, very interesting game, that, and whoever wins will, like, it could easily, Jerry, be a repeat of the final of this game this weekend.
Certainly from up here in the Antrim perspective, last week's win against Kerry was a big deal. Obviously Antrim have kind of been, they've kind of always been below that level. The top counties in Leinster and Munster, and for a long time they kind of seemed to be almost stuck on a wee sort of level of themselves. Like they seemed to play like the likes of Carlow and beat them in these beat them in these games comfortably. Them and Laois were kind of going, whoever was at home tended to win. But certainly in the last couple of years, Antrim have lost. Like they've lost finals to Carlow. They've lost. Was it Meath that they lose to Meath as well in one in a big game? And
yeah,
it's definitely something for Antrim hurling. Like personally, just complete bias. But I would obviously love to see them, if they're going to be competing in Division 1, obviously the other targets to get up into the McCarthy Cup. But, to do it, you have to beat these teams. And at the end of the day, there's not, they're all in there and they're all looking at thinking that they want to get their opportunity in the McCarthy Cup too. So it looks to me, on paper, it looks like it's going to be a good competition. There's certainly all teams that are probably below, the top level, and certainly below the McCarthy Cup standard, but they're all counties that want to improve and push the game of hurling within their counties, which to me, that's a positive.
You're dead right, Gerry. And just one more thing of that is like I think Antrim are in a very, very similar position to Westmeath were in 2019, where their goal this year was to get up into Division 1 hurling, and the fact that they managed to do that, I think anything else is nearly a bonus. Like, they have to make sure they stay in the Joe McDonagh. But I think that there's teams coming up this year. So I don't know what the story is of relegation this year from the Joe McDonagh. I think there's been a bit of a change to the format in that sense. But Antrim this year, anything really else now is a bonus. Now, Westmeath's record against Antrim is very, very good. They bet them in 2019 in the league and in the championship, and they bet them in the championship in 2018 as well. So the record against Antrim is top class. They bet them in the league in 2016. They bet them in the Leinster Championship in 2015. So like Westmeath, and they bet them in the league in 2017 as well. So Westmeath's record against Antrim is excellent. I think Antrim bet Westmeath in 2017 in the Walsh Cup, and that was the last time that they've beaten Westmeath. And so I think that Westmeath have a bit of an upper hand against Antrim. But for Antrim long term, Division 1 next year, they'll get 5 games in a group minimum of very, very good standard opponents, and then there might be a relegation playoff, or if you're very lucky, there might be a quarter final. So I think that for Antrim long term, they have to stay in Division 1, and same for Westmeath. And to be honest with you, it's probably the same for any of those developing counties, that they have to be playing top division hurling, especially in the league.
Okay. So what we'll do then, just before we finish up, I'll just touch on the other 3 competitions, just so you can say, if there's a team that you think might be the one to beat, or whether it's of an even keel. But we'll just touch the Christy Ring Cup first of all. So the format this year is just 8 teams straight knockout. One of the teams now, London, have obviously they've had to pull out due to COVID. So Down have got to buy straight into the semi-finals. But the other games are Offaly versus Kildare, Roscommon versus Wicklow, and Derry versus Sligo. I know from talking to you before, there's one team that it's probably a surprise that they're in the Christy Ring Cup. But if you want to say who you think might come out of that.
Yeah, well, I think there is a backdoor system in the Christy. I think there is a backdoor for the Loot. I don't think they're straight knockout this weekend. But just one more thing before we venture, just to mention the other game, Joe McDonagh, Kerry are playing Meath this weekend, and I'd say Kerry will want to win that game. They're going to be serious for the competition. So I'd say they'll be hoping that they can beat Meath. If they beat Meath, I think they'll have to beat Meath this weekend if they want to have any chance of getting to a final. So I think Kerry this weekend probably should win the other game, Joe McDonagh. But just to go back to the Christy Ring there, I think I don't want to get straight knockout this weekend, but if there's a team you'd have to fancy, it has to be Offaly. Like, Offaly should never be in the Christy Ring Cup. Now, having said that, that's probably a lazy statement, because they were in the Christy Ring Cup for a reason, because they've had chances. Like, they came down from the Liam McCarthy and they came down from the Christy Ring. So you don't get relegated by accident, I always say. Like, they had to lose 4 matches last year to be relegated. But having said that, they'd want to be coming straight back up. They would. They were in the league this year in Division 2A. They dropped down from that last year. They're in the Cup. They failed to get promotion from the league. They lost to Kerry and drew with Antrim, so they didn't get to a final. But they'll have to get it. I think the Christy Ring Cup this year was their main priority, get up to Joe McDonagh and then maybe build from there. So I'd say Offaly are definitely the team to beat. I believe there's a bit of an issue with COVID positive cases in the camp, so I don't know what the story is going to be there. They headed a match with Kildare. Kildare are a county who are coming at underage level. They probably struggled to bring that form senior in recent years, but there's a bit of an added element to that game in the sense that Offaly are managed by Michael Fennelly, who was a star player nationally with Kilkenny, but his teammate David Herity, a former teammate, is managing Kildare, so it's a bit of a former teammate rivalry there in that game this weekend. But Kildare are definitely making waves as a county in hurling, and Derry and Sligo this weekend. I was up in Derry, as I mentioned there, but one thing I noted in Derry was the passion that they have there for hurling as well in the county is serious. There's like Slot Neither are a savage example of that, but there's other clubs in the county as well that are putting in big efforts. I was in Dungiven there. You have Kevin Lynch is in Dungiven, and there's also Ballinascreener. Like, there's an awful lot of teams in Derry like not just the few that get the coverage. So Derry Hurling are making strides. They would be disappointed to lose to Down last weekend in the Division 2B final, but they'll hope to win this weekend against Sligo. Sligo have come up from the Lory Meagher to the Christy Ring in 2 years. There was a bit of an issue with the management. I believe their management resigned there over the summer, but I think Derry should probably win that game. But then the other game, Roscommon Wicklow. Wicklow are a team, they're playing Division 2A. Roscommon are another county. They're putting them in a good work in hurling. Both sides are, but Wicklow probably they're playing level above might just suit them this weekend. And then Down, see that Down are a real traditional hurling county in some ways. Like Down, there's great pride in hurling in Down, so there is. And they're playing London. They have the walkover this weekend against London. London obviously aren't in the competition, so those games will be interesting. But it'll be a major upset if Offaly don't win the competition.
And then the other two, obviously, they're competitions there. Again, in the Nicky Rackard Cup, you've got Warwickshire, we're supposed to be in it, which is give Tyrone by. Armagh, Leitrim play on Saturday. Donegal and Longford play on Saturday, and Monaghan and Mayo play on Saturday. Is there any of those teams that you think might have what it takes to move up into the Christy Ring? Or
it's tricky, that one, Gerry, because like those competitions are probably fairly even. Like I say, if you were looking at the county, like Tyrone are a county that have put in an awful lot of effort in underage hurling in recent years, and again, it hasn't probably Tyrone a senior yet, but they're a county where there is definitely work going in Tyrone and the other counties as well. But I'd say now they could be semi-dark horses this year in the Nicky Rackard. But I'd say Donegal, Mayo, and Armagh would be expected to win those games this weekend.
Yeah, just having a look sort of at the league. Most of the teams in that competition actually played in 3A. This in the hurling league, and Armagh come out on top of that. So it'll be interesting to see, obviously, if they can carry that form into the championship. And then just to finish off, the last competition is the Lory Meagher Cup. Lancashire were supposed to be in this, but again, have had to pull out. So you're just left with Louth, Fermanagh, and Cavan. And this week then it's Louth and Fermanagh, but they were all in. Louth finished bottom of 3A. Fermanagh were 5th in 3B, and Cavan were 4th in 3B. So they're probably all evenly matched. Is there anything there you would talk about or comment on?
Well, the only thing with that, the Lory Meagher Cup, is that like those counties, like there's an incentive this year. I think that the All Ireland, they get to play in Croke Park in a final, and I suppose for a player from those counties, that's nothing to be sneezed at. It's not like, obviously none of those three counties are going to be hurling strongholds, and that is probably the most open competition at the moment in the GAA. But like when you're playing in those lower competitions, to play in Croke Park in a final is a big deal. So it is like, and like, okay, fair enough. Like it mightn't be the highest standard of hurling in the world, but like playing in Croke Park, lifting a cup, like there is normally this year there won't be any supporters there, but normally there'll be a few fans there. So I think the Lory Meagher and Nicky Rackard and Christy Ring, to a certain extent, those competitions, and to give players a chance that maybe mightn't have got it otherwise. Like if you even look at from a Westmeath, Antrim, or any of the Joe McDonagh team's perspective this year, the All Ireland final is the Joe McDonagh final is a curtain raiser to the All Ireland final. Now I know there's no fans in, but like still to be playing before an All Ireland final in Croke Park is what players would dream of, really, Gerry.
Yeah, I know. Even from like a personal perspective, I know like it was a good few years ago now. But back it was, I think, the first time Antrim were ever in the Christy Ring, and we played Carlow in the final, and it was at Croke Park, and I was there that day, and I always kind of remember it was quite strange because it was before Cork and Waterford in the semi-final. It was the year that Kilkenny won their first, and Cork were going for 3 in a row, and Kilkenny beat them in the final. But Cork were playing Waterford before it, and Antrim they won the Christy Ring comfortably, and they were doing like a lap of honour around the pitch, and sort of as they got in front of me, like there was this almighty cheer, and I was kind of like, they're giving Antrim a real good reception. But little did I know, obviously, like I looked down in the corner, and of course aren't the Cork and Waterford teams coming out, so it wasn't anything to do with Antrim. But as I say, it's to be there in the big stadium. Obviously they're not going to have the crowd, but it's a big honour for counties to play at Croke Park. And while certainly the Christy Ring, Nicky Rackard or Lory Meagher, they're not obviously the highest of standards, but as far as I'm concerned, I personally have a preference for hurling in the terms of the two games. So to me, the more counties that are playing, the more counties that are pushing and trying to improve. It only makes the game stronger.
And also, like Gerry, I think initially they were hoping to have an All Ireland weekend, kind of a festival of hurling as such, where this is in normal times now, where on the Saturday you'd have a triple header in Croke Park with the Lory Meagher, Nicky Rackard and Christy Ring finals, and on the Sunday then you'd have a double header with the Joe McDonagh Cup final and the Liam McCarthy final. Now, those plans were initially shelved because the Joe McDonagh Cup teams wanted to be part of the Liam McCarthy and entered in the All Ireland preliminary quarterfinals. But I think though that would be a good idea, face of hurling. Now, having said that, I think the Joe McDonagh winners, especially, I'm not so sure about the finals, but I think the winners definitely deserve a place in the Liam McCarthy Cup, and I think that it's definitely a good idea. That would be to maybe give teams more of an incentive to win those maybe lower tiered competitions.
Certainly, yeah. Okay, well that's everything that we have in the hurling this week. So hopefully you've enjoyed the show. My thanks to Conor for joining me on this year one, and we'll also be back again this week. We're going to have a quick chat about the football league, the final fixtures in the football league, and then we'll going forward, we'll start to look forward to the football championship again and again. But as I say, just to put on record again, my thanks to Conor for joining me, and hopefully you've enjoyed the show, and we'll be back again soon.